Today on Blackish Gold Original, Africa's #1 church accountability channel, we reveal Apostle Arome Osayi's 10 sons, the ones who left, the ones who stayed, and the ones nobody talks about. But number 6 and 9 will shock you. Let's begin with number 1 on this list, Apostle Michael Orokpo. Apostle Michael Orokpo is one of the most recognizable ministers to emerge from the spiritual environment surrounding Remnant Christian Network. Before launching Advancement Global Mission, he spent years closely associated with Apostle Arome Osayi's apostolic culture of prayer, consecration, and doctrinal intensity. Michael became widely known for his deep theological teachings, revival meetings, and emphasis on spiritual intelligence. His ministry expanded rapidly across campuses and international revival platforms, especially among young Christians seeking deeper doctrinal grounding. Over time, however, observers noticed a gradual shift toward an independent ministry identity, collaborations outside the RCN structure, and a broader apostolic network. Despite this, he has continued to publicly honor Apostle Arome as a foundational influence in his spiritual journey. His trajectory became one of the first examples showing that ministers raised within RCN could eventually develop powerful parallel identities beyond the original structure. But if Michael Orokpo could grow beyond the system while still honoring the source, what happened differently with Edu Udechukwu? Number 2, Apostle Edu Udechukwu. Apostle Edu Udechukwu emerged as one of the strongest revival voices connected to the RCN movement, particularly among young believers passionate about holiness, revival, and spiritual discipline. Through Revival Hub Ministries International, he built a growing influence centered around prayer meetings, revival conferences, discipleship systems, and online teachings. Edu became known for carrying a communication style similar to the intense revival emphasis associated with Apostle Arome Osayi, especially regarding consecration and spiritual awakening. His ministry expansion across Nigeria and beyond positioned him as one of the most visible next-generation apostolic figures connected to the RCN ecosystem. Unlike some others who became controversial through public disagreements, Edu largely maintained a posture of honor and alignment while still growing his own independent ministry expression. His rise demonstrated how the RCN structure functioned, not just as a church network, but as a launching ecosystem for revival-oriented leaders across Africa. But if revival preaching shaped Apostle Edu Udechukwu, who carried the emotional and worship dimension of the movement to the global stage? Number 3, Minister Theophilus Sunday. Theophilus Sunday became one of the most globally recognized worship ministers associated with the spiritual atmosphere surrounding RCN and Apostle Arome Osayi. Known for spontaneous chants, prophetic worship, and deeply emotional prayer sessions, he helped define a new generation of Nigerian revival worship culture. Through the One Spirit movement and viral worship gatherings, Theophilus built an international audience stretching far beyond traditional church systems. His ministry style emphasized intimacy with God, brokenness, and spiritual hunger rather than commercialized gospel performance. Many young believers connected the worship intensity around RCN with ministers like Theophilus Sunday, whose chants and worship clips became dominant across African Christian social media spaces. Though not always functioning as a structured administrative leader within RCN itself, his close association with Apostle Arome and revival meetings cemented his place within the broader apostolic ecosystem. His influence proved that the movement was not only producing preachers, it was producing worship revivalists too. But while worship was going global through Theophilus Sunday, another voice was beginning to question the internal culture itself. Number 4. Apostle Tolu Agbula. Apostle Tolu Agbula became an important figure within the operational and leadership development systems of RCN, particularly through the Ibadan branch and ministry training structures connected to the network. Beyond pastoral oversight, he played visible roles in discipleship systems, ministerial development, and organizational administration. His ministry reflects the structured side of Apostle Arome Osayi's movement, one focused not only on revival encounters, but also on raising disciplined workers and future leaders. Through conferences, training gatherings, and leadership mentorship, Tolu contributed to the expansion of RCN's influence among students, young ministers, and revival communities across southwestern Nigeria. His continued visibility within official RCN activities reinforced perceptions of loyalty and long-term institutional alignment. In many ways, he represents the backbone of the movement's internal leadership culture rather than the more public-facing celebrity ministers. But while some leaders focused on training systems, another minister became the visible face of RCN in Nigeria's commercial capital, Austin Ukpore. Number 5. Reverend Austin Ukpore. Reverend Austin Ukpore serves as one of the most publicly visible resident pastors within the RCN structure, particularly through the Lagos branch, a strategic center for the ministry's expansion into Nigeria's commercial and media capital. Known for his calm teaching style, leadership discipline, and alignment with Apostle Arome Osayi's revival philosophy, Austin became a stabilizing pastoral presence within the network. Under his leadership, RCN Lagos developed into one of the movement's most influential urban expressions, attracting young professionals, students, and revival seekers. His ministry reflects the organizational maturity of the RCN system, balancing spiritual intensity with administrative leadership. Unlike some ministers whose identities evolved into independent apostolic brands, Austin remained closely tied to the institutional growth of RCN itself. His consistency reinforced the idea that not every influential son eventually leaves the structure. Some remain committed to strengthening it from within. But if some leaders stayed fully within the structure, what about those who carried RCN influence into completely separate ministry identities, like Apostle Gideon Odoma? Number 6. Apostle Gideon Odoma. Apostle Gideon Odoma, founder of the Fortress Ministry, represents another powerful example of ministers shaped by formative seasons connected to Apostle Arome Osayi and the wider RCN revival atmosphere. Before building his own ministry identity, Gideon spent years immersed in apostolic teachings emphasizing prayer, spiritual warfare, consecration, and revival fire. Over time, he developed a strong prophetic and teaching ministry that attracted thousands of young believers seeking spiritual depth and practical Christian discipline. His ministry style carries many familiar traits associated with the broader RCN culture, especially intense prayer gatherings and revival emphasis, while still maintaining a unique voice and structure. Gideon's rise demonstrates how the RCN ecosystem influenced a generation of ministers who eventually established distinct ministries without necessarily severing spiritual honor or relational respect. His journey reflects the recurring tension between spiritual fatherhood and independent apostolic identity. But beyond the major public names, who were the prophetic collaborators consistently appearing around RCN gatherings and conferences? Number 7. Prophet Joel Ogebe. Joel Ogebe rose within the wider RCN ecosystem as a prophetic teacher and revival minister known for intense doctrinal commentary, online engagement, and youth-focused teachings. As founder of House of Naphtali in Abuja, Joel developed a reputation for addressing controversial conversations within Nigerian Christianity, often blending theology with commentary on church culture. His relationship with Apostle Arome Osayi and the broader RCN structure positioned him among the recognizable younger ministers associated with the movement. However, unlike many others who maintained quieter transitions into independent ministry, Joel's public remarks about leaving a clan triggered widespread speculation across Nigerian Pentecostal circles. His statements about toxicity, spiritual gossip, and ministry relationships ignited debates around accountability, submission, and apostolic culture. The controversy became even larger because Joel continued honoring Apostle Arome publicly while appearing to distance himself from certain internal structures and patterns. His situation transformed private ministry tensions into a national online conversation. But while Joel's departure sparked controversy online, some ministers remained deeply rooted inside the RCN structure itself, including Kesiena Esiri. Number 7. Reverend Kesiena Esiri. Reverend Kesiena Esiri is widely recognized as one of the stable pastoral leaders operating within the RCN structure, particularly through the Warri branch in Delta State. Unlike ministers who expanded outward into fully independent apostolic brands, Kesiena became known for strengthening the institutional and discipleship side of the movement. His ministry expression reflects the prayer, holiness, and revival culture strongly associated with Apostle Arome Osayi's teachings. Over the years, he has remained connected to conferences, mentorship systems, and spiritual training environments linked to RCN's growth across southern Nigeria. Within discussions about Sons of Apostle Arome, Kesiena often represents continuity, stability, and long-term organizational alignment rather than public transition or controversy. His role demonstrates that while some ministers branched outward into separate identities, others continued building directly within the apostolic framework itself. But if Kesiena represented stability within the structure, who helped shape the training systems producing future RCN leaders? Number 9. Prophet Jesse Jangfa. Jesse Jangfa became strongly associated with the broader RCN revival culture through conferences, collaborative meetings, and prophetic teaching environments linked to Apostle Arome Osayi. As founder of Lord of Hosts Harvest Ministries, Jesse built his own ministry identity while maintaining visible relational proximity with key RCN figures. His teachings often center on spiritual warfare, consecration, revival, and prophetic discernment, themes deeply connected to the apostolic atmosphere surrounding RCN gatherings. Though not always presented as a formal administrative leader within the organization, his repeated appearances alongside Apostle Arome and other revival ministers strengthened public perception of him as part of the wider apostolic family. Jesse represents the collaborative side of the movement, where ministers operate independently yet remain connected through shared theology, conferences, and spiritual culture. His role highlights how influence within RCN extended beyond official titles into relational networks and revival alliances. But beyond the apostles and prophetic teachers, who carried the quiet prayer and worship culture sustaining the movement behind the scenes? Number 10. Pastor Mary Ochengele. Pastor Mary Ochengele is recognized within the broader RCN revival ecosystem for her connection to prayer culture, worship activities, and ministerial support functions surrounding the movement. While not as publicly controversial or institutionally visible as some of the major apostolic figures, her presence reflects an important dimension of the RCN atmosphere: the role of intercession, worship, and spiritual labor behind large revival gatherings. Across many Nigerian Pentecostal movements, women involved in prayer coordination, worship ministry, and revival support systems often become essential carriers of the movement's spiritual culture, even when they are not positioned as headline figures. Mary's association with the broader revival environment connected to Apostle Arome Osayi highlights how RCN influence extended beyond pulpits into worship communities and prayer networks. Her role symbolizes the quieter but foundational contributors who helped sustain the movement's revival identity over the years. And now the biggest question remains: if so many powerful ministers emerge from the same spiritual ecosystem, why are some staying, some leaving, and others evolving beyond the structure entirely? In our next episode showing on your screen now, we expose the Apostle Arome Osayi's sons who left and why they left too. This is Blackish Gold Original, Africa's #1 church accountability channel. Click on it and watch it now.